there's a whole chapter consecrated to interviews, of course. And for example, I found interesting that you talk about how candidates' answers are judged. So, would you like to tell us more about it?
So for large corporations, they actually have anchoring scales. So they have what's the question that they're asking, and every question is consistent for every candidate. So it's a standardized recruitment process. And then based on how you answer that question, they rate you on a scale and give you a number. So basically, all the candidates that they have, they add up the total number, and the one with the highest one progresses to the next interview stage. So they have an ideal answer, and depending on how you mark up against that is how you progress. So there's certain ways of answering a question to make sure you score high.
And would you like to share with us for example, some resumes, do's and don'ts?
For instance, resumes, what you should do, you should definitely tell the truth. You should not fabricate your experiences or your qualifications, because they will find out. Especially if they go, okay, so you've got a master's degree at Macquarie University, show us your transcript, and if you can't produce that, you've basically crossed yourself out of the application process. So that's something you definitely shouldn't do. What you should do is make sure that your resume the structure is quite neat. All the dates are in alignment, and if you do have, say, a LinkedIn profile, making sure everything matches up and everything is consistent. Something else you should do is I can't stress enough to check for grammatical errors, for spelling, and then there's also the debate about whether you want to put your referees down or not to. I always recommend not to, because people who aren't experienced with the recruitment selection process have the tendency to call up referees midway. Reference check should be at the end of the recruitment process, when you're looking very strong to get a letter of offer. So I wouldn't recommend putting it down at all. That way, it also gives you the chance to prime your referees, give them a call and say, hi, I'm going for this job. Here's the job description. Even send it to them and say they're going to be asking you this, this, and this. Make it look good. So you have the opportunity to do that. So I highly recommend. Just a couple of those tips for resumes.
And a couple of last questions. I was wondering, you studied psychology as well, so would you like to share some psychology tips for job seekers to improve their self-confidence?
Yeah, definitely. So there is a whole chapter in this book at the end. It's quite a few tips on psychologically speaking. So even for interviews, for instance, from an evolutionary perspective, always smile with your teeth, because if you don't, it's actually quite deceptive. Your brain, from an evolutionary thinks that you're trying to hide or be deceitful. So if you smile with your teeth, it's seen as quite positive. Firm handshake and gripping around, so you're interlocking, because there's a special part in your brain. So hands are very sensitive. They have more parts covered in your brain for somatization. So by gripping here, it registers more, whereas if you're very loose, your brain doesn't register that. It's very floppy. If it's too firm and it hurts, then that's obviously negative. So it's just a good grip, and it's about even like this, so you're not being dominated either as well. So that's just a basic technique when you're greeting people. Obviously don't fidget as well. But going more onto the psychology and increasing self-confidence, there's a thing about judging your self-efficacy. And a lot of people don't think they're good enough when they go for a job. So that perspective flows out through your body language, and you basically project negative feelings. So
you boycott yourself.
Yeah, you boycott yourself. So if you don't think you're good enough for the job, what makes you think a potential employer would? So one thing you can work about that is doing a self-assessment on yourself and trying to determine, what are your skills. So it's a pre-interview exercise. What are your skills? What are your transferable skills? What knowledge can you bring? What unique contribution would an employer see as valuable and an asset to bring you on? So asking yourself those type of questions will automatically increase your sense of self-efficacy. So when you go in there, you'll feel good about yourself and effectively sell yourself more.
Okay, so lastly, I'm pretty sure you have some interesting and fun, maybe fun episodes
Yeah.
that you want to share with us about your career and your experience.
I have one in particular which always stands out to me. So there was a major corporation based here, and the head office is in St. Leonard's. And I was at the 4th application stage. So I went through, the resume screening, telephone interview, a psychometric assessment, numerical testing online. And then there was the interview stage, so the first interview stage. And I just remember going up, 22 stores in an elevator, and there was mirrors. Love mirrors in elevators. Gives you a chance to fix up all your makeup and make sure you look pretty good. And then I just remember going to reception, signing in, and there were 3 couches. So I sat on one couch. There was another man opposite me just playing on his iPad, and there was another couch. And so on the other couch was a gentleman also going for an interview. So I was just making conversation with him, saying, what job are you going for? All the best. And he ended up, going for the job and being pulled over before me. And the man was still sitting there on his iPad, and he looked up, and I smiled and said, "Hi, how you going?" He's like, "I'm good, thanks," but he was really busy on his iPad. Then I got called in for an interview, and it only lasted about 10-15 minutes because the drill alarm went for a fire, so we all had to evacuate. So I ended up evacuating with a recruiter, going with her through her office to get her handbag, and going down, all these flights of stairs through the fire exit. And then, so I'm thinking, I'm not going to get a call back. This is just so disastrous. And I ended up getting a call back. And the reason for that was not because of my performance in the 10 or 15 minutes before the fire drill, was because the man on the iPad was part of the recruitment process. He wanted to see how I interacted with the person at the reception, and how I interacted with the other candidate on the couch and himself. So in general, he found me quite, I think the quote was quite pleasant, quite approachable, and I was encouraging the other candidate, saying, "Don't be nervous, you'll do fine." So because of that, I actually progressed to the next interview stage.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so
okay.
That's the most standout experience for me.
Okay, thank you for sharing.
Thank you.